Mr. President and members, say the names. Alex Preddy, Renee Good, Liam Conejo Ramos, Cesar Sosa Salas, Chong Lee Scott Tao, and so many more. These are real people. These are real people, not abstractions, not just names on a list. In Operation Metro Surge, there were 4,000 arrests made, many of whom were lawful residents of the United States. There were 3,000 federal agents in Minnesota, flanked out especially in the metro area, but across the state as well. What we endured was one of the darkest periods in American history when the government sent masked men, armed, untrained, and unrestrained, to terrorize our communities. This legislation is about accountability, about safety, and about ensuring that what happened here never happens again. The harm imposed on our neighbors, our students, families, business owners, and workers, those who were killed, kidnapped, or injured, we must hold those who perpetrated these acts accountable. The President and ICE are not above the law. In this bill, we are standing up to lawlessness. We are standing up for the Constitution and the rights of every person protected by that Constitution. And yes, we are calling out the violence, as we should. Naming that violence is truthful, not inflammatory. Many Minnesotans bravely stood up to ICE and President Trump during the surge and showed the rest of the country how to fight back. This is one way that we can honor that courage and protect our people from retribution. The 3,000 federal immigration agents deployed to Minnesota was the largest ICE operation ever, causing over $200 million in economic and community impact in a single month, and forcing 76,000 people into the need for urgent relief assistance. In one day, observers documented a peak of 246 detainees flown out of Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport, January 10th. And yet, Minnesota is home to less than 1% of the undocumented population of the United States. People were scared. They were scared to go to work. They were scared to go to school. Minneapolis public schools saw as high as a 60% drop in attendance during the peak of Operation Metro Surge. And this was so bad, the conduct of the ICE agents was so bad that 14 federal prosecutors resigned from their jobs amid Operation Metro Surge and the Justice Department's decision not to investigate the agent who killed Renee Good. They chose instead to investigate her wife. Members, Minnesota has been a target for political retribution and the abuse of federal power. President Trump promised a day of reckoning and retribution for Minnesota and used every lever of federal power to harm Minnesotans. And when they finally realized it was a disaster, they made 3 demands before they pulled out and withdrew ICE. They demanded that we hand over sensitive personal data from our voter rolls, SNAP benefits, and Medicaid recipients. They spent billions of tax dollars on ICE, terrorizing our communities while cutting support for those who need it most and driving up health care costs in the process. And when we saw with our own eyes the harm that was being inflicted, the lying, the fear, the violence, the killing, President Trump and ICE officials lied about it. And I'm not just making this up. They were caught red-handed when the videos showed clearly, explicitly, that what went into the official reports of ICE agents was flat out false. It's a good thing we have video proof of it. Members, the ICE agents have faced no consequences or accountability. In fact, the federal government not only lied about what happened, but called those agents, called Alex Preddy and Renee Good violent instigators and terrorists. ICE detained legal observers without charges, tear gassed students and teachers, abused local elected officials, abducted children, assaulted bystanders for filming. In fact, we've seen that on film. Intimidated daycare workers, stopped medical providers from rendering aid, including to Renee Good, crashed and abandoned cars in the middle of the street, and much more. And many members of our community are still missing and unaccounted for. You know, there's a quote out of, I believe it was the book 1984, in which the author was warning about authoritarianism. And basically, I'm paraphrasing here, but basically he said that the last and most important instruction to the people to finally lock down the authoritarian government's control over the people was to believe what the government says, not what you see with your own eyes. Members, we saw with our own eyes that ICE targeted people of color, regardless of their immigration status, including off-duty law enforcement officers of color who were stopped by ICE agents. Latino, Somali, Black, Asian, Indigenous, refugee and immigrant communities reported being stopped, questioned, and harassed solely because of the color of their skin. In fact, many of them took to carrying their passports and lawful documents just in case that they got stopped so they could prove on the spot that they were lawful residents of the United States. And federal judges confirmed what Minnesotans saw with their own eyes. Now, in face of the violence and threats, Minnesotans stuck together. We took care of each other. All we want are safe communities and fair treatment under the law. So whatever your position is on the appropriateness of enforcing our immigration laws, the way ICE agents and Border Patrol agents went about that enforcement was an absolute abuse of our Constitution. It contravened our constitutional principles. It was without warrants. It was stopping people without lawful basis. It was arresting people without probable cause. It just crossed so many constitutional lines. Members, I've spent a professional and political career defending people against unconstitutional intrusions under the Fourth Amendment and other provisions in our Constitution. I know it when I see it, when there's a clear and blatant violation of our law, and members, we saw it over and over and over again. Well, today we're going to give you a chance to take steps to protect Minnesotans here with the way we vote on this bill. The values of safe communities and fair treatment are not in conflict. In fact, they are essential partners. We expect law enforcement to follow the law, and we expect to be able to hold ICE and the President accountable for the harm they cause. That's what this bill intends to do. Members, this bill contains a number of provisions from Senators Murphy, Port, Mayquade, Mann, Kunesh, Clark, and Fateh, who has spent many years, Senator Fateh has, working on these issues, defending his communities, protecting the rights of Minnesotans. And we will hear from the authors of the individual provisions. And after Senator Fateh is done with his opening remarks, I will circle back to cover my particular provision in the bill, and then we'll hear from the other authors. With that, Mr. President, I conclude my opening remarks and ask the President to recognize Senator Fateh for his.